What's up, y'all? I'm gonna be live on here for a quick minute, but what I want to do is talk about business, more specifically, church business, gospel music business, overall, how we respond to business. And here's what I mean. What I have experienced I've had a lot of experience in church, in leadership, in the music realm, in the business realm, specifically in corporate America, Fortune 100, Fortune 50 companies. A lot of experience. I'm thankful to God. My resume looks pretty good. And so what I want to talk a little bit about is, as believers, as the church, and not any particular church, churches overall, we are always tardy to the party when it comes to embracing things like technology, when it comes to operating in front of things. We are always very slow in adapting, and therefore we always find ourselves behind. And I want us to start looking in 2025 at how we get in front of these things, how we adapt better to technology, how we adapt better to business. And I'm not just talking about production. I'm not just talking about smoke machines and lights. That's not the kind of thing I'm talking about. I'm talking about actually strategizing and having plans for technology and the adoption of technology and the movement as things go, as opposed to being behind them. There are strategists like myself and others. We do this for a living. And corporate America finds the value in that. We are analysts. We know how to look at data. We know how to look at social media platforms. We know how to look at operations. We know how to look at business and tell you, here is the next trend. Here is what you need to adapt to. Here is how cloud technology works. Here is how software as a service operates. Here is how AI is going to impact the church and business and the church world. And if we don't start to get in front of these things, we are constantly going to be behind. And here are the impacts of being behind. Just recently, and let me preface my statement, I like Kirk Franklin a lot. I'm a Kirk Franklin fan. But recently, it was a little bit of a apology, somewhat, for something that he wore when he was ministering, when he was performing in Jamaica. And again, not picking out Kirk any particular situation, but I'm saying there have been signs and data and social media things on his platform that could have been in front of that. Just in 2024, Pastor Ken had that whole situation where he's telling that lady in the choir stand to hush. Now, we could not have got in front of, we could not have known somewhat that he would do that. However, we could have known by analytics and data and response and how people adapt in social media and how people respond to things, what his response was going to do, how his response was going to sit with the kingdom. We could have got in front of some of that. We have a lot of leadership, especially in mega churches, where they have such a large following. And I'm using that word very specific in almost a double entendre, following in their church, because their churches are so big, on social media platforms, because their reach is so big. They have such a large following that some of them have a large chip on their shoulder. They have such a level of arrogance that they will not hear when you could help them be preventative in things. Because everything about marketing, everything about PR, everything about data, everything about analytics, as much as we don't think they do, they matter even in church. We have to pay attention to these things. We have to pay attention to how things go in our social media platforms. What we put up that we may think is interesting. I know a local pastor right now, there was a reel put up, and it comes up around every Christmas. And I won't give the specifics of it, but every Christmas it comes up. It's a reel where they have memed him to oblivion about this Jingle Bells thing that he did. That was preventable. But because we don't pay attention to trends and dynamics and analytics, and we don't want to engage in those things, and we don't want to bring strategists in, we suffer in those areas. The internet is not going away. Social media is not going away. Technology is not going away. So if we don't get in front of some of these things, and listen, it's not just in church, it's in gospel music. It's with your Christian influencers. There are things that are preventable because most gospel music labels do not have that level of strategists. They have music strategists. They have people who think about how songs will be released and that type of thing, but they do not have analytics and data and trends, and they do not have a way that they have strategists that pay attention to these things that can guide them better. I watched a Christian influencer do a video on YouTube, and listen, in watching that video, in about 30 minutes, I could ask 6 questions if I were a reporter, or if I were a person that ran gossip columns. I could put together 6 things very quickly just based on her social media platform that would not have necessarily been positive to that video that she put out. And people were not necessarily, the bulk of the comments were positive, but there were some negative comments that came out of that, and some things that came out of that were preventable. We have to start paying attention to the things that are said. And we have a lot of leaders and a lot of influencers and a lot of preachers who will say things for shock value. And so when you do that, and when you say and you do things, last year we had that preacher spitting on his hands, rubbing it on the dude's face. All bad. Horrible. Bad. Trying to make the example of Jesus when he spit in the man's eyes and doing it all bad. Now, granted, we couldn't have known that he was going to preach it that way and spit and hucker and be nasty. However, a strategist like myself and others could have looked at that, because he's known for doing things for impact and shock value, to say, this is a bad idea. This is not what you want to do. We have to start getting better at these things in church. We have to start getting better at these things in the gospel music industry, because the Black church suffers when we do it. And I don't know if you are paying attention, but attendance in the Black church, in the church overall, is not rising. The church is shrinking, specifically in America, in North America, and that includes Canada and other places. The church is shrinking. It is not getting bigger. Some churches in specific may be increasing in membership, but the church overall is not increasing. And if we don't get in front of some of this, if we don't do better at strategizing, we are going to be in trouble. we are going to have problems. And I know people are going to say, read your word and pray. Yeah, we do all of that. There are, again, strategists like myself. We saved, sure enough saved. But corporate America can see our value. The church does not. And so we can get jobs in corporate America and increase corporate America and increase business because we are strategists and because we know how to look at things and study the trends and and analyze things and look at the data and look at technology. And we increase ourselves in terms of our knowledge and what we learn about technology and how we develop. We are constantly working on ourselves. But the church does not see our value. And because they don't see our value and see what we can bring, they are constantly behind. We need to get in front of some of these things. They are damaging to the kingdom. They are damaging to the church, and they are damaging to God. Because people will look at that and they will apply those things to God. They will apply those things to church. This is why I don't go to church. This is why I don't believe in God. This is why I don't do X, Y, and Z. Because we are steadily behind. We have to do better at embracing these things. We have to do better at getting in front of these things. And listen, I understand what the economy looks like. I understand what budgets looks like. And I understand that budgets and church and those things are shrinking. But we got to start budgeting some of this stuff in. Because if we don't, more and more doors are going to close. More and more people are going to do other things. And it is so easy now to swipe from church to church to church online and be a member of Bedside Baptist and not go into a building, which means we are not attracting people into the buildings. So even people that are believers and they saved, they still participate in Bedside Baptist. They don't get up, get dressed, and go into the buildings. So we gotta reach those people. Now, some people are doing it better than others, but most churches, most fellowships, most denominations are failing miserably at it. They are failing. And again, if we don't do better at it, because that is the direction. And I get it again. People are going to say the word is going to do the work. Yeah, but people are involved. People are involved who say things that are not necessarily rooted and grounded in the word. And so those things become damaging. They do things for shock value and for impact to see how people are going to receive it. And those things are not necessarily word driven. And so because you got people involved, you have to have people who help the people. We have to do better. In 2025, I want to see us get in front of some of these things. I want to see us do more damage control. I wish we would hire more strategists, get the word out, understand the necessity of it. Because if we keep doing it the way we're doing and being last in technology, we will continue to be behind. And we will continue to make the same errors and the same mistakes and do things that are damaging to the kingdom because we refuse to embrace, we refuse to get in front of it. Again, I'm just one person. I'm just one strategist. I know personally at least a half dozen strategists who are saved, who work in corporate America and who understand church leadership and church business, who can help to develop some of these things. We must do better. We have to do better. Because if we don't, we are going to constantly be behind. And again, it's in every part that we are rooted in. It's in gospel music. Like I said, I have seen a couple of things happen. In particular, I saw an artist, Capital CMG and Motown. I saw an artist with Reach Records. I have seen the errors and the lack of strategy in their social media platforms. And a lot of these gospel music artists think because their platforms are so big, because they have such a big following, that they can say whatever it is they want to say. And yeah, they grown, they adult. Technically, they can say whatever it is that they want to say. But they do not understand the impact of some of what they say. They do not understand the impact of some of what they do. And the impact that they are having is becoming more negative than positive. So we have to do better. We need strategists. We need people to look at what it is we plan to do out here on this internet, out here in technology, and say, okay, this is not a good idea. And listen, again, you're going to have to budget it. You're going to have to spend some money to do it. That just is what it is. Now, there are people who will be willing to work with you, but you're going to have to spend some money to do it. It's going to be necessary because, again, we are in trouble. Some of the stuff that y'all out here saying and doing across these platforms, across these pulpits, it is crazy. And we got to look at the data. We got to analyze this stuff, and we got to get in front of some of this stuff. Look at some of these reels. Look at some of these live broadcasts. Look at some of these Facebook posts. We got to get out here and look at it because we got to see the impact that it's having, because it's not just you. You are impacting the kingdom, and you are impacting the work of God, and you are impacting what should be biblically sound and positive in a way that is not. Let's get in front of some of this. Reach out.